Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Purple Kirk podcast. I've heard some wonderful feedback about having my first guest, John Gallagher from Raven. We had a wonderful time, and I left the interview unfettered and untouched because in this era of pandemic and we're all looking for content to listen to as much as to look at, I found John's comments and insight to some of my questions very thoughtful and engaging, and thought that just leaving it alone, just like he liked to just do things live and in the moment, I felt that that lent the classic nature of his music to that. So a week ago, we lost yet another luminary in the world of music. 2020 has been an unusually cruel year, as we can all attest to. But the death of Eddie Van Halen seems to have left not a void, but an entire black hole in the world of music. Um, I can tell you firsthand, having seen Eddie perform twice, once on this particular tour. This is my tour program from that year. And, say what you will about this classic lineup. Features, here's Eddie wearing his parachute pants, Alex, his brother, Sammy, and Michael Anthony, who would go on all these years later to work together in a band called The Circle. When Sammy got the news about the death of Eddie, he had revealed that they had been actually texting for quite some time leading up to his death and didn't want to reveal that to the public because they didn't want anybody to have any inkling or rumors that there was going to be a reunion happening. Sadly, that wouldn't happen for either David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, as he passed away last Tuesday. For me personally, having seen this lineup of the 5150 tour, which, in my not so humble opinion, is the best album they ever put out with Sammy, hands down. You had Mick Jones of Foreigner lent co-producing duties, along with Don Landy, the engineer who'd worked for a long time with Eddie. And they just created a magical album. Songs like Get Up far outstripped and outweighed the pop-ish song Why Can't This Be Love. Yeah, it was a top 40 hit. Probably was a smart way to go. And like a lot of albums in the 80s, such as Michael Jackson releasing I Just Can't Stop Loving You, which is easily the weakest cut on the Bad album, you could almost say that the weakest cut on the 150 album would have been the ballad Why Can't This Be Love. But even with that, there's that innovative musicality within Eddie Van Halen's grasp. And when he was on, he was really on. Again, I always point to, the when everybody talks about Van Halen, the number one show of display of, popularity right now on social media, when you look up Eddie Van Halen, is the recording of this particular tour of him doing his instrumental Eruption. I just so happened to be at that taping in 1986 with my brother Jeremy, and a friend I haven't seen in many decades, Wade Martin, was living in living in Connecticut at the time, about a hour's trip outside of Hartford in Newtown, Connecticut, where the unfortunate mass shooting had took place many decades later before I lived there. I actually lived in Sandy Hook. And with a friend from the neighborhood and my brother and myself, we went to the New Haven Coliseum and saw Van Halen, who redubbed New Haven New Halen, and taped both their shows for what would later become the Live Without a Net show. And I was there. I was a part of that history of the new chapter in the Van Halen world. And I will tell you, I've told this to numerous friends before, I didn't care if Pee Wee Herman had been the frontman for the band. Maybe I would have cared, but it was all about that guitarist, that drummer, and that bass player on the stage. And when Sammy Hagar came into the mix, whether you think he added or detracted from Van Halen, it was two different animals, apples and oranges. The musicality I felt on stage, you had the wonderful vaudevillian sheen and clever, witty lyrics and some dark lyrics that David Lee Roth provided, and that certainly is a great era and chapter in Van Halen, which I got to see in 2007. But there was something about just the pure musicianship of the 5150 era that just couldn't be touched to me, because it was all about the music and what those guys could do on stage, and it was absolutely mesmerizing. Some memories of that show I'll never forget, and those who were in the audience will remember. They did a cover of Robert Palmer's "Addicted to Love," and they did it with the whole. And I think it might be in the video where they were doing a little chain where they were dancing and in sync together. Kind of looks like the Genesis video "I Can't Dance," where they're walking together in tandem in a line like a crazed conga line. I don't know if it made it on that. I haven't watched the Live Without a Net video in years. I'm definitely going to go back to it at some point. Maybe see if I can get it on Blu-ray or DVD, old school it, not stream it off YouTube. Get it hard copy. But I do remember that they opened the PA speakers before Van Halen came on the stage live and did Sammy Hagar's song, "There's Only One Way to Rock," which is a perfect way to open the show. This is definitely announcing, okay, we got Sammy in the band. What a better way to announce his introduction to the band than with a Sammy song, with Eddie adding extra guitars, and it was brilliant because Sammy Hagar is a decent guitarist. You know, he can rock out. It was wonderful. It was fantastic. And again, for those of you who are not necessarily rock musicians, or you knew Eddie because of the Thriller album and the brilliant guitar solo that he had on "Beat It," for those of you who don't know anything besides that, if you are more of a Prince and Michael Jackson fan, and of course this is a site where I call Purple Kurt Podcast, and I have yet to interview anybody related to the Purple Kingdom. I'll get there. But part of my world and my early existence was in rock and roll and heavy metal, and that's why I had John Gallagher on as my first guest. And when we talked about Van Halen, just the tone that he got, the unique style of playing. For those who are not fans of that music necessarily outside of the "Beat It" song, or maybe got turned on to the "Beat It" song and then went to the 1984 album with "Jump," which had poppy keyboards on it, turn to the instrumental that's on their "Diver Down" album, which arguably has a bunch of covers on it. Not the greatest album, some weird, they had their father, Jan Van Halen, playing clarinet on one of the songs. Was it Big Bad Bill? Or I forget now. But Cathedral. Everybody talks about Eruption and the classic guitar solo that opens up the first Van Halen album, which definitely shows Eddie as in his guitar prowess and his technique. But as a musician, I never turn people on that would not otherwise listen to rock and roll with Eruption. I think that would be a turnoff, if anything. I point them to the Cathedral instrumental, which is the studio version is less than 2 minutes. And with that one, you get this different sense of tone color and what he was doing with the instrument. It almost sounds like an unaccompanied Bach cello piece. But otherworldly when he uses the delay pedal, the volume knob on his guitar to create these swell sounds that don't really resemble a traditional electric guitar or acoustic guitar or the 6-string instrument itself. And calling it Cathedral, what was he thinking? Was he thinking church? Was he thinking... I don't know whether he was necessarily a particularly spiritual person. I really never did my homework when it came to knowing Eddie as a person. I always felt like he spoke that through his music the best. Prince is kind of the same way. I mean, as you peel the curtain back and read all these stories about these different luminaries like Prince, like Eddie, Jimi Hendrix, all these monsters of music, sometimes peeling back the layers reveals a little too much. But I will say this. Eddie is going to be sorely missed, and I'm sorry that he went out and succumbed to cancer. I mean, years of drinking and smoking, I'm sure, contributed to that. But nobody will ever hold a candle to being the pioneer that he was. Yes, there were other people that were using the hammer-on technique on the on the guitar, rather, like a keyboard. That would be Alan Holdsworth, Tal Farlow was doing a bit of hammer-on technique with the guitar, but nobody ever did it in the style and the way Eddie did. And guitarists that came after him, wonderful guitarists that have come after him, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai come to mind, certainly have pioneered the guitar and the tones and techniques in their own way. Steve Vai is still coming up with ways to play the guitar that no human being has done. But Eddie's in that Mount Rushmore of musical pioneers, not just guitar, but just in general. And he'll be forever missed, and he'll be forever remembered through his music, hopefully played loudly. Peace and love to you all, and stay tuned for my next special guest or my next appearance here on the Purple Curd Podcast. Take care and be well.